Namaste. I am JVN Narendra Kumar Chahar, Assistant Professor in Department of Science and Technology, Faculty of Education and Methodology at Jyoti Vidyapith, University, Chennai. So today we are going to discuss GRAM, GRAM. In the previous sessions we have discussed about the grid computing and then some examples of it, and then how the distributed computing and parallel computing works, and how these are the relevant grid computing, etc. Now we will start our session with execution management. So the key component of this execution management, as we saw in the previous session, so it's GRAM, and that's a grid resource allocation management. So what is exactly this? So it's for submitting executable jobs and may interface to a local job scheduler. So it's how to allocate the resources to multiple PCs, how to divide it into chunks, and how to submit the executable jobs at a place. It's like a server is providing some task or any job to a system. So is it executable on that system or not? This will be maintained by GRAM. Just because we are checking the resources earlier, it's like we check the software compatibility first, and then we install the software. So how it goes? So when we see the grid resource allocation manager, so it's in the execution management. So in the execution management, it's in GT3 in the web services, web service components. So here is the GRAM. What is WS term? That means it's a web server GRAM. Okay. So when we see a GT4 GRAM structure, so here we can see the client is here, GRAM services and delegation. These are the client is using the DOM functions and the delegate, and it is transferring request to RTF file transfer. So here we are talking about the file transfer. So basically we are talking about file transfer, FT. And if we talk about the protocol, then we say FTP. So it's a server which is providing such kind of services where we can play some files and user can access it from there. So it's basically like accessing offline or might be online through the any link, or might be from the IP address also. So when a client requests for any content or any file, then that is placed on the FTP there. So what is basically does? So it just request, or it just puts a transfer request or a view request to see that. So from GT4 Java container, this is a Java container, then it goes to the CAM adapter and grid FTP. So what is the grid FTP? It is managing the grid. So we are calling it as grid FTP. Now the FTP data is placed here in what storage element. So what is basically FTP? We are just creating or created a space where we are putting some files or some kind of resources, any storage, any type of storage, the data. Then we are accessing that data from a remote location, or just like how to take the data or fetch data as fast as possible. Then here is the GRAM adapter, and then we talk about the computing element. So this is the Sun Grid engine. Here there is a local scheduler and the jobs are scheduled. So this is the Sun Grid engine where the jobs are scheduled. All the requests accepted here, and then they schedule the task for they create a sequence or a job to execute that. Now, when we talk about data management components, so these are here RFT file transfer here. So these are based in the Java container. Now we'll talk about the security components. So there is a must thing in the grid computing or any kind of network connection. So we talk about the security components there. So what is the security? So security components are there. So how we ensure the security? Just like we are talking about the security and we are just talking about the CIA trial. The confidentiality, integrity, and availability are there. So we are just maintaining them very first. After that, when we are talking in context of grid computing, so we have to keep things in mind like what these addresses, the security requirements of grid computing, and what are the important factors are these are authorization, authentication, and delegation. So when we talk about the authorization, it is the process of deciding whether a particular identity can access a particular resource. Just like if there are multiple users in a network and server is authorized is only one user to access this kind of some specific file or some specific user login. So this is authorization. When it logins, then it gives the credentials and the server it is already authorized to access that. When you talk about the authentication, so it is the process of deciding whether a particular identity who is he say he is. That means uh, the particular entity is making sure that it is the legitimate entity in the network or it's providing some credentials to authenticate. So when we enter the username and the password and the server authenticates it. So this is the thing comes in the under the authentication. Now, when we talk about the delegation, so this is somewhat specific to print company. So this is the process of giving authority to another identity, usually a computer or a process to act on your behalf. Just like when we use Ubuntu or any Linux operating system, so we use so we talk about the sudo operation where we are using the sudo to execute any instruction there. So what is the sudo? That is super user do. That means the super user is providing some kind of privileges to do the task. So it's behaving like it's a root user, but it's not a root user. Something like that. So we are providing or we are giving authority to another, just like we are handing over or power to someone else. But these are auditable and the logs are maintained for that. So I can see that thing, what he has done or what she has done, and then I can again see and change it. Now there is another aspect. So security aspect is complicated by the fact that virtual organization members are and resources can be different administrative domains. What it says, the virtual organization members and VO member and resources can be in different administrative domains. Virtual organization is some kind of organization which is virtually set up for everyone. And then we talk about the resources. So then we talk about this. So this is the storage. The resources are just treated to the storage purpose. So the storage can be placed anywhere else, and we can access that from some kind of remote place. So the storage can be placed anywhere, somewhere else. So we are just talking about the FTP server earlier. So we can set up an FTP server somewhere else and a application server somewhere else. Now we talk about the GT4 security. What it provides? It's controls access to shared services. This means that it addresses different policy in different workgroups. Another one is will support multi-user collaborations, like it's federate to mutually trusted services, local policy authorities rules, personal collection of resource working together based on trust of users. Now, this is the security area of complete thing, like how the security is managed here. So this area comes under the security, and we can see there is delegation services here, community authorization services here. Okay, so in the GT4 there is only delegation service, and when we talk about the GT3, there is community authorization service and web server authentication authorization. So these are two things: authentication and authorization. As we discussed, authentication is just to authenticate, and authorization is to provide the access. Now, in GT2, GT3, and GT4 again, in the non-web server components, so we talk about the web server authorization authentication. Here, a credential management is also there. So, how the credentials are managed? So, as I said, there are credentials. So, when the user enters the credentials, it must be some kind of authenticated by the server or else to the database. Now, data management in GT4. So you've seen here the data management. So these are the things. So we'll discuss the next slide. So how the data is managed here. So this can move the large data to or from nodes. Just like I want to move the data from this node to another node, so I can do that, and I can paste the data from some other node to my node. Then the replicate the data for performance and reliability. So like I can replicate a single node to the another one. Just like I can completely create a replication of any kind of data. Then the next one is locate data of interest. It's like if I want to search some specific data, so I can search this directly from the directory or just directly from the database. Now they provide access to the different data sources. Just like we have discussed about the FTP, so I am providing the access to the FTP client. So here we talk about the file systems, parallel file systems, hierarchical storage, like grid FTP. So there is FTP, it is obviously there is the FTP server, but when we talk about the grid FTP, so there is some kind of specific architecture of that. And then we talk about the databases. That's all GSA. So these are the things here: reliable file transfer and grid FTP. So when we talk about the web service components, it's about reliable file transfer. And when we talk about the non-web service components, it's grid FTP. Next, when you talk about the grid FTP, so what is this actually? So it is built on FTP using separation of data and control channels. Just like when we talk about the simple FTP server, so there are two ports there. One is to establish a connection, and the second one is to transfer the data. So the port number 20 and 21. So the port number 20 is used to transfer the data, and port number 21 is to create 21 is used to establish a connection between the server and client. So, what are the features that a grid FTP provides? So, large data transfers. It is obvious that if I want to transfer the data at a large level or large scale, I can transfer the data. it provides the security and it's fast. How it is fast? Like it's just dividing the data into some small parts and then it is sending. So some small parts are easier to send. Fast transfer, reliable. We can rely on the system. Third party transfer. So we can also transfer the data from some other node. Now when we talk about this, not a web service. So when we talk about the reliable file transfer, so it's just a web service. It's not a web service. It's just a file transfer protocol. So the service provided by WS level. So we simply can create a or FTP server that's like a FTP colon double slash and the IP address, or you can say localhost address of the localhost, and then we can access that. So one of the port numbers will be specify any kind of port number, then we can write up here. Otherwise, we don't need to write any kind of port number. Now, if you if you want to bind this to some another, so we simply can bind. Like we are giving some address here, and we are just putting some entries in etc host. It's like we are adding a host with a IP with an IP address. So this possible. Now we talk about the parallel transfers and stripping. So using multiple connections for transfer, so there must be the same external network. Like I'm creating a network for some any kind of transfer. So I'm just creating a server which contains an FTP server or some files are placed there. So if these can be shared within a network, so there must be a same network so that directly or without on internet, like the users can access all the data. Now, the speed improvement possible. So when you talk about the virtual, so then the chances to increase the efficiency and the performance. So the speed is improved already, but limited by network card. So how much the network card is supporting? Just like if a network card is supporting 10 Gbps, then we can apply higher. Doing this like it's in this 100 Gbps, but we are still getting the 10 Gbps. And the second thing is the striking here. So what is this striking? It's a version of parallel transfer that can separate hardware interfaces. So there can be some hardware interfaces that can be used separately. Now it is implemented in GT4. Here it is. Monitoring and discovery system. It is in GT3 and the web service component. This is the monitoring and discovery. Now, when we talk about the monitoring and discovery, WS RF, that means the web services resource framework provides common mechanism for monitoring and discovering a service. That's GT for executor service within MDS. So, what is MDS index? So, it collects the set information from registered resources and make it available as XML document. Now, the second one is MDS trigger. So, it passes this information to an executable. Third one is MDS archive. So these are the archives that state information. These are waiting for the implementation, and then every GT4 is discoverable. So when we talk about GT4 only, so there are some kind of services. Then the way we just index the data. In the indexing, we just collect data. And then when we are triggering this, so we are just passing the information to the executable. Like you want to execute the information, and then we can just archive the data which we have. Like if we have some kind of data and we want to use it later or it is already used, then what must be there? So it is obvious that that data is not usable right now, but when not used, so it can be viewed later also. So this was all about the grid computing. So there is a quick review of our previous sessions also. So we have discussed about the introduction part. So the grid comes from an analog to electronic grid. Like we are creating some kind of grids here. So these are the places. So these are the places where the data can be stored or some different kind of resources are allocated to them and we are managing them. When we talked about the scalable computing, where we talked about some a small laptop to a global network, then grid computing came. Then we talked about the elements of grid computing. So we use this resource sharing, coordinated problem solving, dynamic multi-thread, and virtual organization. So we have seen the virtual organization. So this is the virtual organization. So here we do an example. It's like there are some application service provider. There is an application service provider and storage service provider. There is a different cycle provider, consultant engaged. So there are multiple people out there. So they are just built from they have built the organization that is virtual, that is not exist anywhere, but they are doing the work. And then we talk about the formal definition of grids or coordinate resources sharing in a decentralized manner. So grid is decentralized, it is not a centralized service. What is uses? It uses standard open general purpose protocols for interfaces. Then we talked about the applications, so it's biomedical research, industrial research, engineering research, and the studies in physical chemistry. So yeah, as in that time, the e-science came. So it's a large scale science carried out through distributed collaborations after leveraging access to large scale data in computing. Then we so the TerraGrid, what is the architecture of TerraGrid, how it is connected, how e-science is used there. Then we talked about some more applications. So astronomical surveys, data sets, so it's called the sky, challenge some against the general community, heterogeneous data. There is no homogeneous data, there is always heterogeneous data. So these are the things when we talk about the INFT physics. Here the data is in the petabytes or then we talk about some more applications, there's virtual automatically, physics, then some online access scientific instrument. Then we talk about NEES, that is Network for Earthquake Engineering Simulation. So there are multiple factors which are which might be seen to measure or to predict whether there will be an earthquake or not and what can be some circumstances. Then we talk about the Dewey system grid. Then we took an example of virtual organization and we created a virtual organization and then we talked about security. This was the previous session, grid computing software infrastructure. So where we talked about this, like what is a stateless web service and what is a stateful web service. These are the things. Then we saw the relationship between OGSA. That's so open grid service architecture, and this is web services resource framework and the web services. So this is an infrastructure and this is an architecture. architecture leads to the infrastructure, and this lead to the web services. So this was all about the grid computing. So we have discussed a lot of things about the grid computing. So it's time to wind up this session. Thank you.